All right. Today we're going to look at using DESMOS calculator, and DESMOS is actually going to be on the NC Math 1 final exam that you will take. So it's an end of course test, and so we're going to get you familiar with that and try to help you out. So the first thing that we're going to look at is going back to Unit 1 and how to use DESMOS for that. So we've created the link to DESMOS, and you'll want to make sure that it's the NC test version. It's going to have a green bar at the top. There is a version of DESMOS out there that has a black bar at the top, and that one has a lot more features that you're not going to have access to. So I want to make sure that you are using the correct one. So if we're going to look at the first example, what is the value of x in the equation below? We could, if we were solving this by hand, we would distribute and combine our terms and get the variable by itself. But DESMOS is super awesome. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to put the first half of the equation into this line 1 over here. So we can type that in. We don't want to put any spaces. Okay? And then we're going to put the second part of the equation in the second line. And no spaces. And what you'll notice is that the DESMOS has gone ahead and graphed those equations for you. And you should see that at some point those two equations cross. So where these two lines cross is where they're going to be equal. So we can click on that point, and that point is 546. And remember, coordinates are written x and then y. So the question says, what is the value of x? So the value of x in the equation below is going to be 5. All right, going on to number 2, very similar question. What is the approximate value of x in the equation below? So we can clear these out and get started again. We're going to put the first half of the equation into the first box. And then we're going to put the second half of the equation into the second box. And what we should have is 2 graphs. In order to find the x value, we need to find where these 2 graphs intersect, these 2 lines intersect, and zoom in just to make sure. They intersect right here, and there's decimals, and that is quite all right. It intersects at negative 0.14286. I don't know about you, but I don't know what that fraction is off the top of my head, so I'm going to eliminate some answer choices based on what I know. So I know that the answer for x is a negative number. I know that it's not negative 3. It could be negative 1/7. It is not going to be positive 1/3, and it's not going to be positive 7. So by process of elimination, you should know that it is negative 1/7. But just to double check, we can type that fraction in, negative 1, and we can do divided by to get the fraction. And so negative 1/7, it will convert it to a decimal for you. And we can see there that these two decimals are the same. This one is rounded, and that's okay because it says what is the approximate value? And that would still be negative 1/7. All right, the third example is going to be very similar. It is just an inequality. So with the inequality, we're going to do the steps the exact same way. We're going to put the first half of the equation in the first box. Then you get an error. The error is that you cannot use m. You must change the m to an x. Now it should work, and it should graph your equation for you. Then we're going to put the second half of the equation into the second line. Remember, we can't use m, we must use x. And so it should graph both of your equations for you. So we want to figure out, where is 5x plus 10 going to be greater than the 2x minus 7? So our red line is the first equation. So where is this red line going to be greater than the blue line? So here they are equal, and the red line obviously goes up past -8, further than the blue line. So what that's going to tell us is here, the m value, remember we've replaced with x's, so same thing, we're only going to look at the x values. The x value is -8, that's where they're equal, but we want to make sure that the value of x is going to be greater than, okay, greater than, above -8. So our correct answer for that one would be C. All right. The next one is function notation. If we were going to evaluate this function for the value of f of 4, if we were doing this by hand, we would plug in a 4 right there for the exponent. But for this one, we're just going to type it in and let Desmos evaluate it for us. So we're not going to type in the entire f of x equals. We're only going to type in the 20 times 2, and we need to get an exponent. So the exponent, you're going to hit Shift and 6, and it's going to move your cursor up to the top for an exponent. So again, that is Shift and 6. It's going to have that little up arrow. And then where there's an x, we're going to replace it with 4. So up here, our exponent is going to be 4. The value for that is 320. And that's all you do. The next one, same way, it's just got two parts. We have two functions. We have f of x and we have g of x. We need to find the value of f of 2 and g of 3. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our x function and we're going to type it in. Make sure you do the 0.5. Shift 6 gets you the exponent, and we're going to put in 2. And then in our second line, we're going to type in the g of x function. So 10. Here, instead of x, we need to do 3. And then we're going to add 18. The question asks us to add both of these values. So we're going to add 9, and you can even do this in Desmos, plus 48, and it should give you the answer of 57. So the answer to this problem is 57. All right, last but not least, we're going to clear that out and get started with our last one. A function is shown, f of x. If f of 30 equals -11, what is the value of k? We've had problems like this that we've solved by hand, but we're going to use Desmos to solve it now. So we're going to type in -3 over 5. And so to get the fraction, again, we're just going to use the slash, which is right underneath on the keyboard for the question mark. It's on the same key. And where there's an x, we want to plug in 30. So we're going to plug in 30, not 3, 30. Okay. And so when we plug in our 30 there, our value is only -18. The answer is supposed to be -11. So what would I add right here, the value of k, what would I add so that the value now, instead of -18, would become -11? So it needs to go from -18. What could we add on to that to make our answer -11? I added 5, and that gave me -13. So obviously I need to add some more. So if I added 7, that gives me -11, which is my -11 result. So the answer to this question is 7.